Why did the lake date the river? Because she had a bubbling personality. Hold on to your bones, it's time for the show! Welcome back to Creatures, Cowards, and Crafting. Today we're going to take a look at Printable Scenery's recent Kickstarter, Brave New Worlds. And this is the Wasteworld pledge that I recently backed. This is printed out in black PLA. I did prime this in white so you guys could see it a little bit better. It doesn't show up that well on the camera unless you have something contrasting. These are some interesting 3D printed files. A lot of detail. Here's a airplane. You can actually see the inside where the pilot and co-pilot would sit. Lots of different wrecked cars, abandoned cars. And what I thought we would do today is paint some of these and see how they look on the game table. So for today's project, we're going to be using the Maker Gear 3D printer. I've had this printer for some time now. It's built like a tank. Great engineering on this. It's made in the USA. If you're looking at getting a 3D printer, I highly recommend you do the research. There are some cheaper ones out there that may work just as well. There are some that are very costly, so definitely do your research and think about it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the STL files here. This is what is digitally given to you by Printable Sceneries, and this is what will be transferred into our PLA. To start off with, I first went and painted the jet plane, which was by far the easiest, I think, to paint. All I'm using here is a white and a chocolate brown. You can use any brown that you might have on hand and any white. I did use an airbrush for this application. You don't have to do that. You could use a brush and just thin your paints, or you could use a can and just lightly coat. Then I'm just going to go over this with some silver paint. I'm using, I think, an iron breaker for this, and I'm also using a burnt sienna just to add that rust effect. Next, we're going to go ahead and weather everything by applying some washes. I'm using a Leonell, which is a black wash, Agreste Earthshade, which is a brown. I'm also using the flesh tone as well, which gives it kind of that rusty look. Now, you can add some details in there by just picking out some of the rocks with the gray or some other paint, just adding some contrast. And you can also go over those seats, the pilot seats, with like a blue or a red, and then put your wash on there, and that'll just add a little bit more depth to it. The second technique I'm going to use is very easy. I'm going to use a natural umber for this, and I'm going to mix it with a burnt sienna. We're going to use a matte varnish to mix the two together, and we're going to use a old brush to just kind of put this on to the car. This works very well with wrecked and abandoned vehicles, by the way. And we're just going to apply this directly on there. We don't have to prime or anything. Now, if this is too thick, you can apply more varnish to kind of thin out the pigments. You want to try to keep this from getting on the windows because we're going to go back and paint those. And this is just very easy. You don't have to do the chipping method that I've used previously. For the windows, we're just going to go ahead and prime using a white. And then we're just going to go back over it with a yellow. And we're just going to use some purples and some whites just to highlight the corners. What we're going for here is kind of like a sun reflection off the windows. And we'll just use those to highlight. Once we're done, it should look something kind of like this. And from here, we're done, unless we want to add some additional steps, such as maybe putting nail polish on there just to give it that shine. You could also maybe go over it with a orange or a dry Riz of Rust. And to lock everything together, just give it a very light coat of Tesser's Dull Coat. Very light, guys. So for the next piece of terrain, we're going to kind of marry all the different techniques that we've explored on this one. And as you can tell, I've already applied the raw rust, and I've used the white primer technique. I've also just kind of applied some base colors here to the front. And what we're going to do is we're just going to pick out one car, and we're going to use a different color. I'm going to use this desert turquoise, and of course we're going to thin that down using some acrylic thinner. We're just going to start to apply this to the car, and remember, we want this to go on thin. We can always apply a second coat if we need to. I'm also going to use this time to apply some base colors to the front. When we're painting terrain, we want to try to make this as easy as possible. And to do that, we want to pick colors that, you know, we don't have to blend, we don't have to mix. So blues, greens, reds are really great. Browns are awesome. That's what I tend to do. Also, get a lot of get a lot of mileage out of your primer. So if you know a lot of things are going to be white or a certain color, use that as your base primer. Also, a technique like dry brushing here I'm just applying some metal overbrush. We're going to go nice and light with that. If we do get heavy in certain areas, we can tone that down by using maybe a brown or a black wash. All in all, this should tie things together. You may want to go over with a tan over the wood. And you can also pick out some smaller details if you see those, like maybe chains, or if there's like debris or like rocks that we've done before. Let's see how this looks on the table. And here we have our finished project. Final thoughts on this. I think 3D printing is a great tool for any hobbyist to explore. That doesn't mean that you need to rush out and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a 3D printer. I know that there are crafting purists out there that don't really believe in 3D printing, and to me, I like to embrace it as a tool. I really think that it can take your projects to the next level. If you've ever made like a tavern that might have 8 windows, you know, plus maybe 1 or 2 doors, you know that can get very tedious. Having something that you could mass print and save the time, you know, while you're working on the tavern and printing that, it goes a long ways. As for the 3D printed files, I think they speak for themselves. I think they look great. There are some print lines in them, but I don't really get hung up on that. These are rough vehicles in the Wasteland. You can scale these down for games like Gasland. You can even make them bigger if you need to. I did not get compensated in any way by Printable Scenery. I backed this project with my own money. I just wanted to share this with you guys, give you something new. As always, I'll end with a nice video.
Little baby.
Hey guys, that's a wrap for this week. Greatly appreciate you tuning in. Seems like we've got a lot more subscribers. I know I say that with every video, but it's so true, and I want to thank each and every one of you. In the background, you might hear a lawnmower. We're not going to allow that to stop us. We're going to keep on rocking, and that's what I hope that you do. Please stay safe, keep rocking, keep your friends and family safe during this time. If you like the video, give me a big thumbs up. Think about subscribing. More importantly, share this with someone that might like this type of video or craft. We'll see you next time. Bye.